So we are going to have a fun conversation today. We're going to talk about how to decide where to put your focus for the second half of the year. Like how you can think about that, how you can process that, all that good stuff. I'm going to talk to you about how I'm processing it for a Lit Up Life because I think it's helpful to see examples. I'll share some client examples, that kind of thing. It's July. So it's time to talk about that. I think I said this in the email, but it's like, always so funny. Hey, Angie, it's so good to see you. Michelle said I came home from a trip to a broken washer. So right there, and things we can't control are annoying with you for it. Yes, the worst. Back from Provence and happy to be here. Oh, I love that you took time. They're having a beautiful summer. Yeah. So, okay. So we're gonna talk about what to focus on for the second. Oh, I was saying, I remember what I was saying. I think I said this in the email, but like, I feel like it's so cliche to be like, can you believe it's July? But also like, I literally can't believe it's July. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Like it was January, yesterday. So we're gonna talk about this year. I think what I notice for most people is like when that like mid-year point rolls around, they're like in one of two headspaces. They're either like, this year is a write-off, not going how I planned, whatever, I'll figure it out next year. Or they're like, I have to change everything to get what I want this year. Like we vacillate between kind of these two extremes, and like almost 100% of the time it's somewhere in the middle that we need to be, and we need to get specific. Like those are just like easy answers of like change everything, change nothing. And what you really need is a way to get specific of like, what should I change? Why does it matter? How should I change it? How should I tweak it? And how can I lean into that? Because if you do nothing, obviously, what your results are going to be. But if you change everything, you set yourself back 3+ months, right? And even seeing the results of that. And so typically you don't want to do that, right? Like you don't want to set yourself back so much unless there's this like very, very compelling reason to do that, which is rarely really the case unless you're like wanting to change your whole business. Erica said I couldn't imagine changing everything, but definitely need some tweaks. Okay, good. Tweaks are what we're here for. We're going to get all into the tweaks. Also remember, we always do a giveaway every week. So any comment, just as a thank you for joining us, you're entered to win a chance to pick any one of our products that we offer. So like whatever is the best fit for you. If you decide today what you need to focus on and there's a product that's the best fit for you, you can pick that. So okay, I'm going to share, I just got water everywhere. I'm going to share what we're doing or how I'm thinking about it a little life first, because I think that might just be like a helpful starting point. And then we'll go from there. But hey, Julie, hey, Lauren, hey, Lisa, thank you guys so much for being here. And obviously, if you guys have questions along the way or you want to troubleshoot what your thing is, feel free to share that in the comments and we'll do that too. So for a Lit Up Life, what I really focused on in the first half of the year was audience growth. You guys know I've been doing the reels, really leaning into that since like end of last year is when I really started to like take that seriously. I probably started focusing on it in maybe like late October and then really kind of like took it more seriously through this beginning of the year. And so what I really wanted to like lean into and show myself there is like, I could update my marketing. I could market in a new way, in the way that I see things going. Oh, yay. Elisa said, I know it's not the topic today, but I listened to the first episode of season 10 and love it already. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. That makes my day. Thank you so, so much. And thank you for listening. So I focused on that in the first half of this year and feel like very happy with those results in terms of like, okay, we can grow the audience. We can get new reach. We did update all of our marketing processes and strategies for that. And I feel good about where we're at with that. And so the next question I would be asking myself is like, does anything need to change from that place? Like if, let's just say I was like, okay, I'm going to go super hard on social. And maybe I was posting like 7 days a week, right? Because that is like a good number if you want to really, really grow. Then what I might be coming to right now is like, okay, I've really done that. I feel like I know what's working. I could pull back. I never made it to 7 days a week in the first half of the year. So I don't have to worry about that. But I'm just saying that to say like, if you've been really having something as a focus, it might have been taking up a lot of your time and energy. So one of the first questions you can ask is like, okay, am I still going to focus here? And if not, like if I still want to do this, but I don't want it to be the main focus, do I need to pull back? And what might that look like? So if you've been sprinting it out with like, I'm posting, you know, every single day, and now I want to kind of shift a little bit. Okay, amazing. Then you might want to think about what that looks like to pull back. Again, I never got there. I was posting probably 4 or 5 at the max. So I feel good about staying there. I don't think that's a worry for me, but I do think I'm going to shift my focus. I feel like I'm pretty clear there on like what works. It's taking less of my time, less of my energy. I also feel like I'm not like, my goal was more to really update how we were doing that to transition to like what I think is working right now. And I feel like we've checked all those boxes. Like I didn't have a goal of like, whatever, grow by, 4,000 followers or something like that. Like I just didn't have that. So I feel like that box is officially like checked for us. And so I'm going to keep doing those things. I'm just going to shift what our next focus is. And I think that's really important for people to remember, is that when we're changing focus, it doesn't always mean we're stopping doing the thing. Again, you might be like, okay, I'm going to pull back in this way. But what you're really saying is, I'm just giving this a bit less of my focus and energy. So, like, I'm still going to post on social 4 times a week, right? I'm just not like, okay, we need to rethink about our processes. How are we doing this? What's going on? Da, 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 right? So, that's a thing. Okay, I don't need to pull back. I'm going to stay there. What I'm going to focus on in the second half is more list growth. I really wasn't that concerned with that in the first half, because I really just wanted to like see the audience grow on socials and overall, and I want to see traffic grow to my website from that socials like effort. And so I feel like I've seen all of that. And so now I'm like, I really want to specifically translate a lot of that to the email list. So with the numbers that we've grown, now I really want to be like, okay, my focus in the second half of the year is making sure we're growing our email list. And so what I'm going to do is like shift to do more things that do that. So again, it's not like I'm not going to post, but like when I have extra energy and attention, it's going to go to like probably run an event. Like I can't even remember the last time I ran an event at A Little Life, like 2021, maybe, I think. It's been a long ass time. So I'm excited to do that. Like I'm excited to be like, okay, let's do some stuff like that and see how that plays out. So that's what I'm going to do in the second half. So it's like, we got the social going, we're going to maintain that. Now we're going to think about audience growth. And it doesn't mean we're not doing all of it, or I mean list growth, sorry. It doesn't mean we're not doing all of it. It just means like, when I'm thinking about what do I want to spend my like project time on in my business, where do I want to put my energy, right? That's what it's going towards. So I feel like that's just a different thing than like where we sometimes like make these huge swings where all of our energy is here and then we drop it, and then all of our energy is here and then we drop it. Like this is just like a right. It's just like, where am I putting my attention? Michelle said that was the first time that event was the first time you ever coached me. So crazy. Hey, Deborah. Okay, so that's just like an example of like, okay, did the thing we were focused on work or not? If it didn't, what do we need to do differently? If it did, do we need to pull back and level set on it? And then what's the next problem to solve? So I think it's like a really good and very simple way to just kind of look at this. But again, I'll give other examples because I think that can almost feel too simple sometimes. So another example that I'll give of a client, and we'll kind of get into that. Well, let me say something about a little bit first. I'm in like an interesting position in that I'm really doing a lot of stuff thinking about what's happening for our business several years in the future versus what's happening right now. The right now that I'm always focused on is, helping our clients make more money. So I'm also focused on rolling something out to our clients. They don't know what it is yet. Well, yeah, they don't know what it is yet. They will soon. I'm also focused on rolling something out to our clients that I've been working on in the background to give them a little bit more help and support. It's just something we're going to try and see what everyone thinks. And And that is my more like immediate, like, okay, how can I always like give my clients the best I can give them? Um, but then more long-term is like, I'm always thinking about like, how are we growing a really warm and engaged audience so that when we have spots, people are ready to buy? I think that we do that really well. I think that that is by and large happening, but I also don't ever want to get complacent on that. Um, so that's why I tend to focus, my extra energy on stuff like that. And so I'm just saying that to say, like, it's not always that we have this like massive problem that we have to solve in our business. Like list growth isn't really a massive problem for us, but by and large, I would say when I'm like out doing um, reels or really pushing stuff like that, a lot of what we get from that is waitlist growth, which is great. But I also want to see people coming in through other ways by like consuming like an event or something like that and coming through there. So I just say that because I think sometimes it feels like everything in business is about solving a problem. And technically, it's not like we have a huge problem to solve right now, but that also doesn't mean don't do something or don't pick a focus. I actually think quite the opposite. Sometimes when you don't have a problem to solve is when you need to focus the most, because otherwise you can make problems by like getting messy everywhere and being like, well, I'll try this and I'll try this and I'll do that. Right. So anyway, that is where we're at. And I just wanted to add that caveat because I think it's important to be like, it's not always about like, there's this massive gap in the business and we have to solve it right now. It's like, if I was thinking about the business 2-3 years from now, what does it need me to be doing today to make sure it's successful then? That's what I'm going to do. Okay. Client example I want to give that feels really important. Crystal says we'll be fine. Yes, Crystal has been working very hard on this. Bless her. Okay, so next example I want to give is the client. And again, if you guys want to troubleshoot any of yours, obviously feel free to let me know. But first half of the year, we really focused on traffic and leads for her. Like when we really started the year, like she just had a leads gap. Like she just really had to fill that. And so she really has, like, she's done a really good job of solving that problem at the beginning of the year. And so now coming up on the second half of the year, we just had a call about this. And it's like, okay, like that stuff is humming along now. Like what we put in place to get leads is working to get leads. And so now we really need to make a shift to go, okay, excuse me, how are we better converting those leads? So like the leads are coming in, now let's up the conversion rate on it. And why I share that and why I think that's important is because a lot of times in business, we're always fluctuating somewhere between one or the other, and everybody wants both all at once. But sometimes it is much better for your business to go, in this season, we're focused on leads, and this season, we're focused on conversion. And again, it doesn't mean you stop trying to convert. It doesn't mean you stop growing leads. It just means what's getting your attention, what's getting your extra projects, what's getting your extra team time, that kind of thing. So that's always going to change. Like I guarantee you, we're going to focus on upping conversions for her. And then we're going to go, wow, our conversions are like amazing. Let's go back to leads, right? So these things are always going to shift and evolve. And I think that it's important to say that because some people, I think, find it very frustrating that those things are always shifting and evolving in business and forget that that's actually the entire game of business, is that things are always evolving and then there's always going to be a new/old problem to solve, but in a different way. Right. So ideally, when we eventually shift back to leads at some point, it will be the same problem, but it will be different. It will be evolved. We'll have a much higher level set for what her conversion rate is and how much she's already generating leads. And like, that's how you scale a business, right? Is it gets better and better. And you're kind of like foundational points or your level sets get better and better, but you still have those things that you have to solve for. And so I wanted to share that because I think that sometimes we can be looking for that endpoint. So for this client, it's like, okay, her conversion rate was good. We shifted to leads. Then she's, in this place where she's like, okay, the leads are coming in, and then we shift back to conversion. I think it could be really frustrating to be like, oh my God, why am I back here? I thought this was good. And that if I just got leads, everything would be fine. And it's like, everything is fine in her business. Like, again, there's not this like massive problem. She's like growing, she's making good money. Like nothing is wrong, right? But if she wants to continue to scale it, we have to keep circling back and going, what's our focus now? What matters? What should we be putting our attention to? And I think it's just really important to say that, because I feel like so many people feel like they're getting it wrong if they have to like focus on something like that again, even if they had a while ago, or if they had once at one time felt like those numbers were good, and having to circle back to them is really frustrating. It is literally the whole thing in business. And so this is always a really good starting point too. Do you have a leads problem or a conversion problem? Right? Jen and I talk about this a lot. Like, math is really helpful in business, because sometimes the math just maths and points you in the right direction. Can you convert really, really high on a small audience? Absolutely. Like, it's not like you just have to like have a million leads coming in to not have a leads problem. But if you are going, okay, I want to make more money, there's two ways that's going to happen. You're either going to get the people who are already there to pay you or pay you more, right? Or you're going to get more people to come in and pay you. And so figuring out which one that is really helpful. And again, not making it wrong if you're circling back to one again is also really, really helpful, because that's the game, always, changing. Like for us, again, we don't have a conversion problem. I'm not going to focus on that. Like, that's not a thing for us right now. And so when I think about future me in business, I would want to make sure I was building a relationship with leads now that wanted to hire me later. So I'm going to solve for leads, right? First, it was through like social media. Then it's going to be through building the email list. Like, I'm going to keep solving for leads, even if it's not a problem. So this is a great place to start, is if you're trying to be like, what should I focus on for the second half of the year? I would really try to just know that answer. Do I need to get better at converting, or do I need more leads? Now, in some cases, and I'll use another client example, maybe neither of those really need your focus the most. What needs your focus the most is your current people. Again, mine is kind of always there. Like, the leads thing is like almost like a side project, because obviously we make the most money through our current clients and through revenue share. So another client example is like, her leads are actually in a really good place, and her conversions, quite honestly, almost couldn't be better. Like, there's not a lot we could really be working on there right now. And so what we're really working on in the second half of the year is her programs. Like, are we updating them? What are we adding for clients? How are we reworking them so that we're getting even better testimonials, even better client experiences? What updates need to be made, all of that kind of stuff. And so that's really her focus and project for the second half of the year. And ultimately, like, it's all a domino, right? Because if all of her programs take a step up and she's getting even better testimonials and there's even more updates, then to go back and get great conversions for those is even easier. And so technically it's solving for leads or conversions, in the sense that like, the more happy people you have, the more leads they're going to naturally bring in, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still something really specific. And again, to illustrate where I think that we can go wrong in business sometimes, is we think we're supposed to do all of that at the same time. We're like, oh, well, the second half of the year, I'm like updating all my programs. I'm like really focusing on client retention, and I'm, wanting to triple my list size, and I'm wanting, to convert my funnel better. And it's just so hard as a business owner who's also serving and delivering, as a service-based business owner who has to still serve. It is so fucking hard to do all of that at the same time if you don't want to work your face off. And I think it's just important to say that. I mean, it's not like someone couldn't, like, I guess it depends on how much time and energy you want to put into that. But thinking that, which is what our industry does, thinking that you could do all of those things at top tier level in a few months, right? And get really, really good results from that while not burning out. That's pretty tough to do. And I think we all kind of got to be honest about that. Elisa said, haha, definitely team, let me fix everything all at once. I get it. I really do. It's so often what slows people down. And I see this from a data perspective too. I was talking to one of my clients about her funnel the other day, and she was like, I want to change this, 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 and this. And I was like, absolutely fucking not. Do not touch 5 things in your funnel at once. That is so we're back at square one then. Like, we don't know what changed. We don't know what's working. We don't know what's not working. We don't know what change made a difference, right? I'm like, let's change one or two things max and look at that. And I think it's hard because it takes so much patience, but there's some irony in that it actually is what speeds us up. Because if you spend, let's use that as a fine example, 6 months updating programs, um, focused on client retention, et cetera, you are going to crush that. You're going to do that so well. You're going to do that with such precision and such focus and such good energy that you will literally be able to like close that tab in your brain 6 months from now. And there is really something to be said about closing tabs in your brain. I think we all know what that feels like to have 1 million tabs open in our brain as an entrepreneur. And so being able to close that tab and go, okay, we're on a really good track with that. That really needs very little of my brain space. What does is amazing. Kind of same with the social thing. Like, I feel like I'm at a point where I'm kind of like closing that tab in my brain. Will I still show up for it? Will I still be part of it? Absolutely. Another thing that I feel like I'm like closing the tab on in my brain is, you guys know, like, this has been a big team transition year for me. And so that, like, obviously I still have newish team in the sense that it's been, not even 6 months, but I feel like we've done such a good job. I'm so happy with it and so grateful for it. So I feel like I can kind of close that tab in my brain where it's not like I'm not still working with my team and still interacting with them, but it's just not like this loop of like, do we need more team? What else do we need? What else should we be doing there? What else could I be doing there? What other resources do we need to be getting? Am I doing a good job? Is this working out? Do I need to give more feedback here? Whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, we're good. And so I think there's just really something to be said for not having every tab in your business open all the time, because kind of like tabs on your computer, which I always learned the hard way, they still take up a lot of background bandwidth, and I think that's so true in your business. And so when you are directly focused on one thing, doing it really well for a matter of months, being able to shut that down and go to the next thing, like, that is truly speed in terms of growth, in my opinion. Like, that is how we make shit happen fast. So like over the course of a year, then, like, yeah, maybe all you did was like update your programs and like get a ton more leads. But like, that would be amazing. Like, if all you did in the course of a year was like update a ton of your programs and like bring in a ton more leads, like, your business is guaranteed to be in a great place the following year. Like, you are setting yourself up for so much success. If you had 20 tabs open and you moved all of them a few steps forward, you're just in the same position next year. You're just chasing your tail. Shannon said, yes, it takes discipline to overcome that sense of urgency about fixing everything at once. 100%. I think it takes discipline. It takes patience. It takes trust. It takes surrender. I mean, there's so much to it. I am not saying this is easy. I just do think, like, if we're thinking about the following year, like, man, the next few months and how that impacts the following year, man, that's the best way to go. Erica says closing the tabs. It's so hard. You know what I think is really interesting about why it's so hard too, is I think that so often we feel such an urgency behind all of these things. But what I always remind my clients is, like, your business doesn't have these things right now and it's still okay and it's still running. So sometimes it's like, we're like, oh my gosh, so much urgency to, like, I'll use myself as an example. I knew I needed to update my social media, but as I've said before, I was in a place of like having just lost my dad. I was really in grief. I had a really, really young baby. I just couldn't at the time. I guess I could have. Let me say it differently. I could have. It just was not the right time for me in a way that would have felt good. And what I had to remind myself is, like, my business is fine. Like, my business has been running without me doing that. So another 6 months of that, I can sustain that. Like, I can be okay for that. But 6 months of making myself crazy miserable, trying to do 100 things at once and accomplishing very little of them, that I can't sustain. I can't run a business like that for multiple years in a row and create sustainability. I just can't. So I think that's a helpful way to think about it sometimes too. Even though it's hard, is to be like, okay, I can, like, my business can ride out, like, not giving leads my full attention for 6 months. And what my business can't ride out is like giving 20 things, half of whatever, a 20th of my attention for a year. Like that is where things get dicey because it's all messy then. And it's going to take a lot more to clean up later. So I hope that's helpful to remember. That was always quite comforting to me. Is that fear that's driving us sometimes to want to do it all, or even that excitement that's driving us to want to do it all, is usually so false in the sense that like there's really nothing to be scared of. And the excitement we're seeking so often actually comes from really accomplishing something. Like we want to feel that sense of like, oh, did it, done. And we get that through the focus. It's like the client I was talking to you about earlier, where it's like, she really has a sense of completion and accomplishment with what she's done for her leads pipeline in the first half of the year. Like there's really something to that. And I think that that is such a gift. Like that excitement feels worth it. Like it's coming to fruition and like she can really see that. And I think that's what creates motivation in business, like ongoingly. I think so often when we lose motivation in business, it's because none of those things are like really fully coming to fruition. And so we're in this like perpetual state of almost like waiting. Like we're like, okay, I'm almost there. At some point, all of this is going to click into place. And like that's the trap, is we're waiting for it all to click into place at once instead of being like, there are always going to be clicks out, you know? And if we can feel accomplishment on one or two of them at a time, like that's all we need to stay motivated and keep going. That's personally why I really, really, really like data, because I feel like it helps us feel that sense of accomplishment sometimes too, because we're like, oh, okay, so I just focused on leads. Wait, wow, I can literally see that. Like when I was focused on like social media and traffic, right? I can literally see, oh, Instagram was sending me this much traffic in January and it's sending me this much traffic now. Box checked. Like I'm good. That's amazing. And so being able to have that and see that, I think is really, really useful. And it is kind of what can help keep you on track for the one thing sometime. So I would really think about that. Where do I need to put my focus? Do I need to get more leads in? Do I need to get more conversions in? Or honestly, do I need to work on really updating some like systems and processes, whether for client service or team or whatever? And can I acknowledge that a few months of doing that is the thing that sets the stage for the next thing? I think you guys will see this in season 10 of the podcast a lot too. Kristen is definitely very like, she's very passionate. She's very excited. She's a quick start. She loves to start multiple things at once. And she really like has so many irons in the fire and not all of them are getting like coming to fruition or seen through. And so that's a lot of what we talk about. So if you're struggling with this, definitely listen to that, because I feel like this is such a crossover there. And again, I think Kristen's really open and honest about the fact that it is not easy to close all the tabs or to have that delayed gratification or to be like, here's this thing I want and I'm willing to wait 6 months to go after it so I can get this other thing I want first. So here's the thing. I think that this is the stuff, and we'll maybe like wrap with this a little bit, but obviously if you guys have other questions, tell me, and I can certainly share a lot more. But I think that this is like one of the most important points I can make is the online space is so built on kind of like selling us these everything happens overnight, quantum leap kind of vibes. And what that makes us feel like is everything has to change at once. And so if everything has to change at once for me to get the quantum leap, of course, that's what I want. Do you know what I mean? Like that makes so much sense. But we're so often playing to the outlier there. Like, do quantum leaps happen? Absolutely. I've had a lot of clients have like kind of that unprecedented growth in a short period of time. But what I will always tell you and be honest with you about is that 9 times out of 10, they happened in ways that we couldn't really gauge or expect. Like, she talks about this all the time, so I feel comfortable sharing this, but like when Sabrina and I worked together, she went um, 0 to 1 million in 9 months, right? Epic, total quantum leap, absolutely amazing. But so many things lined up. And yes, we were really strategic about those things, but they were things we couldn't have even predicted almost, right? It was like her Forbes article blowing up. Did we have a really good strategy around that? Yes. But like that specific opportunity and how it came to be and whatever, it wasn't like, it was totally outlier shit. Like, right? And why it worked so well is because she had the foundations already working and in place. So when that kind of opportunity that led to the quantum leap happened, we were as prepared for it as I guess we could be, although like you're still building the plane as you're flying when something's happening at that kind of like warp speed. But I say all that to say, like, it's not like we were planning, like, let's assume you're going to have this insane quantum leap in your business. We were like, cool, how do we grow this thing? And then, like, this outlier happened to help with that. Right. So it's not like those can't happen or that we shouldn't be excited about them or whatever. It's just to say, like, if you're planning all of your business and all of your strategy around waiting for that to happen or thinking that that's going to come, you're ultimately going to be quite frustrated because it's the outlier. It's not the norm. And I know like everyone will be like, but I don't want to be the norm. I want to be the outlier. And I get it. And the online space like preys on that desire to be the one that's the outlier, the one that has the huge pop, right? But the reality is you could have the same results of that probably in the same time frame if you were working on these things consistently. So if like you have to wait a year and a half for your quantum leap, what could you have been building in that year and a half that would have gotten you the same thing? It just would have looked more steady over time. And honestly, I think having been behind the scenes of quite a few quantum leaps, like it's not all it's cracked up to be because you are building the plane as you fly. And so if it was going to happen in about the same time frame anyway, it would be much better to have the plane built for all intents and purposes, right? Than to have to figure it out then. And again, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, like, I don't think people realize, like, let's use Sabrina again, to go from 0 to 1 million in 9 months. Like, I don't think anyone realizes how much you have to hold on the back end to try to keep that together as it's happening. It is extreme in many ways. And so it's not to say it's bad, it's just to say it comes with its own trade-offs. And so if we can go, hey, I'm like so available for that moment, and I'm also building really consistent foundations, and I'm like solving the right problem in my business, and I'm focused in the right places, like that ultimately is your best bet, in my opinion, right? It's like, you know, like you could be that actress that's like waiting for someone to just like randomly discover her. You could go out and be on a lot of auditions. Like either way, maybe you'll have that magic moment, but like, fuck, you might as well like go do that, you know? So I hope that helps. I think that that's just, I think our space is so focused on this idea of these like massive leaps because they do happen and they can happen. But I think that like the amount of focus and almost like pedestaling we do around that makes it really, really hard for people to like have a good experience in business, to close tabs, to feel focused, to not feel frantic and doing 100 things at once and scattered and all of that. And so for me, I didn't have a quantum leap at a Lit Up Life. I really didn't. I just like built consistently for years and got to like the 7-figure mark by building really consistently for years. But the thing is I enjoyed that time because I wasn't making myself crazy during it, trying to have a quantum leap. So I just share that to say, again, it's not bad. It's like a really cool thing when it happens and it's like really amazing. And there's still trade-offs to that too. Speaking to your soul right now. Good. I'm so glad that helps, Erica. Thank you. Okay. So would you recommend focusing on something like audience growth for a whole 6 months or a quarter until you reach your goal, no matter how long? Yeah, that's a great question, Lisa. I really think it depends on like what your goal is and when you've hit it. I would try to be specific with that. For me, since I kind of don't have always like the most concrete goal, like it's not like I was like, okay, a Lit Up Life's, you know, list needs to grow by X amount or something like that, that I usually will just pick a time frame because it's easier for me. But like sometimes with clients, we definitely have like a very specific goal, like whatever, up your funnel conversion rate by 2%. And so maybe it takes us a quarter to get there. Maybe it takes us 2 quarters. And so we would kind of just focus on that until it was there. So I think it depends. If it's a more general thing like I was talking about, I would definitely set a time frame. If it's a more specific thing like, hey, we really want this conversion rate to go up by 2% because we know that would make the biggest difference, then I would certainly leave that more open to like, when do we hit the goal? I think that excuse me. I think though either way that kind of comes with a time frame, if that makes sense, because you're like, I'm staying in this until I hit that goal. So like there is still a measure of like it takes what it takes. Kind of like when I'm like, I'm going to do this for 6 months, it's going to take what it takes. So similar but different. I think it really depends on kind of like where your focus lands with that. I personally would say for myself and with clients, I typically lean to more of a time frame than like one very, very specific thing because things will evolve in that time too. So it's like if we go, okay, we want to increase the funnel conversion rate by 2%. Well, what does that even mean? Like in the sense of like, do we mean for a week? Do we mean for a month? How long do we want it to sustain at that elevated 2%? Because if we're just taking a week, like maybe it will, but do we want it to be like, do you see what I'm saying? So like even with that, it's like can kind of get dicey. So I personally lean a little bit more towards I like time frames because I think it's just more clear. And I think it gives us a valuation point. So if we're like, okay, we're working on funnel conversion rate for at least 3 months, then we could kind of see. And we might know the goal is like up it by 2%, but we still want to keep our focus there for a period of time. So I think either works depending on what your goal is, but I would say 80% of the time I like to focus a little bit more on a time frame than one really specific thing because it's just always evolving kind of. And again, I think that's the thing that can be so frustrating in business, but I also think it's the thing that can be really helpful when you're like, oh, I'm just always going to have to relook at this and I'm always going to have to reevaluate. And it doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong. It's just kind of how the game gets played, right? So think about that. I would, if you're not sure, I would lean more into setting like a 3 or 6 month kind of goal and then reevaluating and seeing what goes from there. I would just also remember to like I feel like there's such a thing about like having your business planned out for so long. And I think in some businesses, it's really easy to, for me personally, I think I have a business model where it's a little bit easier to do that. And others, I have clients where I'm like, I don't even want to plan more than 3 months because I want to see what happens in this launch. I want to see, if our focus on this funnel, like again, maybe it leaves. And then we have like this whole other thing. I have this client right now who was like slowly building. The plan was to kind of like slowly build up this thing on social. I'm trying to be non-specific. In like 3 weeks, I mean, absolute quantum leap. Like I can't even like process how big of a quantum leap she just took. And so everything had to change from there, right? Like it was like, oh, okay, throw out every single fucking plan we had and like reorient to the fact that like everything is different now. And so sometimes there's like really value in like just planning a few months at a time. So think about that too. Like maybe you have a business model where again, it's like mine, it really makes sense and it's easier to plan out. Or maybe you need to be planning like just for 3 months, you can see what happens there, use that data to reevaluate. Hey, Liz, thank you for being here. In the States, I love it. Okay, that is all I have. If you guys have other questions, obviously let me know. Remember, everyone is entered to win any product that you want. And just so grateful to you guys for being here. Yeah, and being part of this conversation. So I hope you have a beautiful week. I hope I come back next week with my tooth situation in order. Send me good vibes, and I will see you guys then. Bye, y'all.